In previous speeches, I have said the Republican Party is engaged in a conspiracy against small businessmen and workers in the United States. That conspiracy is reducing the profitability of service sector business and the last remaining manufacturers. The conspiracy takes money out of the pockets of small business owners, out of the pockets of workers, and so 80% of Americans have little or no expendable capital with which to support a struggling economy. The economy is failing under the pressure of a small war we cannot seem to win and we dare not lose. The nation's cities are overcrowded with desperate people who can't find good jobs. Crimes of robbery are increasing 10% each year. I have said the Democratic Party is incompetent to fight this conspiracy. First, Democrats are not trusted by the majority of Americans. Here's the evidence. They have only elected 3 presidents since 1968. Carter, Clinton, and Clinton. Part of their problem is the Democrats are 7 different political parties, all riding on the same donkey. Another part is the unwillingness of these tiny power cliques to accept any new people or ideas. These problems go hand in hand. Anyone who wants to run for office as a Democrat must gain the approval of 7 caucuses. If a guy with new ideas begins making speeches which are not to the liking of someone in power, a whispering campaign begins. They spread negative rumors about him, then they cut off his funding. So the message of the Democratic Party to all new candidates is no change. Officers of the Army and Marines began to resign their commissions in 2005. They wanted to run for office to tell the world how badly mismanaged the war in Iraq really was. The Democrats let them spend their own money getting out a diverse message which made the Democratic Party look as if it had some new blood. Then, a few months before the election of 2006, they had meetings with these men and asked them to drop out of the election to allow a long-established, older Democrat to run for the post. What effect could this possibly have except one thing? Only the wealthiest new candidates could continue their campaigns. The Democrats don't want mavericks. They don't want new ideas. Democrats will tell you they don't want the public to become confused. You can imagine the impact this has on young, fiery, highly motivated patriots who are trying to work within the system. The people with the power told them, "We don't want you, and we're pulling the plug." Now, these officers had leadership skills. They knew what the problems were, and they had the energy to organize people, communicate the solution, and lead the fight. But Democrats do not want hot-blooded young leaders to rise up in their ranks. They were comfortable with the status quo. The Democrats do not want to deal with a lot of new ideas. Change can be inconvenient. Besides all that, they have not yet figured out what the Republicans are doing. Here's the problem. In this country, we absolutely know, that the North American Free Trade Agreement so far has resulted in the permanent loss of 3 million jobs. It might be more, but it certainly is not less. Clinton gave us NAFTA and the recognition of China as a favored nation trading partner. That was a shaft too. Since NAFTA, Bush has created additional free trade agreements which are photocopies of NAFTA. The results of free trade agreements are that American jobs are moved to a foreign country, and the products of those jobs are shipped back to the United States. Nobody pays a tariff, and that's why it's called free trade. The low price of these untariffed products made by suppressed and exploited people undercuts the price of the same product made in USA and slashes the profits of the poor dumb cluck who stays here, pays his American workers a living wage, and doesn't realize the government has declared economic warfare on him. But the movement of all these factories out of the country is creating a tremendous strategic liability for the United States, and it's waiting to kick us in the pants the first time we bend over. 15% of all products purchased in the United States are now made in China. Another 15% are now made in Mexico. 1.7 million IPC containers a year come from each of those countries. Here's the liability. American property in a foreign land must be protected, and you can put money on this. The first time there is a revolution, a war, or nationwide riots in China or Mexico, all those CEOs and directors of all those corporations are going to be banging on the doors of Congress, screaming for the Army and Marines to come and bail them out. His own ambition has manipulated an unsophisticated president into an unwise and unproductive war. And that president has already admitted and demonstrated that the president who follows him will inherit that war. Bush gave up any chance of winning Iraq in 2006. His attitude shows it, and he has never once called for the unconditional surrender of Al-Qaeda or of the insurgents of Iraq. The Democrats look at all this and they still do not perceive the plan. Everything the Republicans do increases America's liability and cost of operation, and nothing they do results in any accomplishment which would compensate this nation for the present and future loss of opportunity and the loss of our prosperity. The Democrats cannot bring themselves to admit that the Republicans want to undermine the financial success of 97% of Americans, or that Democrats only did it because they were too stupid to know that's what was going to happen. But that is what the Republicans want. They want to destroy our prosperity, and we see the evidence of their actions. They reduce our earnings by raising the cost of small business and decreasing its profits. They allow 80% of the workforce to concentrate in service sector business, which has lost a manufacturing customer base equal to 30% of the entire economy. They create legislation which is only beneficial to the richest corporations on earth. And it is only beneficial when those corporations move to a foreign country and ship their products to the vast market of the United States. This further reduces the customer base of our oversized service sector. Even Ford and General Motors have been stabbed in the back by Republican policy. Chinese importers now brag they will soon have a Chinese car that sells for $10,000. Republicans will resist any effort to tariff this car. Republicans refuse to solve the problems. Not one dime is available to support the jump-starting of small business manufacturing in the United States. All discussions of trade become hostile arguments when a simple tariff is proposed. And the growing liability of a diaspora of wealthy American bosses living in luxury in China, Mexico, Central America, paying their employees the lowest price possible, makes our future military intervention in those regions unavoidable. Yet, we are increasing the death rate of our best soldiers in a fruitless war against an invisible enemy in Iraq, and we have never yet exerted pressure on the so-called government of Iraq to find the enemy. Our soldiers are talking to individual citizens, one by one, who live in fear of being murdered if they give information on the insurgents. But the government of Iraq has never issued a public proclamation or a policy of defense or protection for those who identify the insurgents, and it has failed to condemn, verbally or publicly punish, the insurgents we have captured. When Bill Clinton tried to pay off the Reagan-Bush deficit in 1992, Republicans refused to help. Every Republican voted against payment of the deficit. Deficits cause inflation, and investors do not invest in new business when a government is in debt. So Clinton had to wait 2 years until he had a Democratic majority in both houses before he was allowed to remove the deficit and give investors once again some confidence in the United States government. This should have been sufficient to educate the Democrats that the Republican Party seeks to impoverish the United States for its own enrichment. Yet the Democrats blunder on, 7 different agendas, maneuvered by 7 hostile committees of fat cats, and the only thing they can agree upon is no new blood, no new ideas, no courage, and no change. I am Quixote. And I am disgusted.